Water has a sound when a ship is sinking. Not the water outside, that's just ocean waves, normal. I'm talking about the water coming in, through the hull, through the hatches, through every crack and gap. It has a sound, a rushing, gurgling, hungry sound, like the ocean is swallowing the ship whole. I heard that sound on December 7th, 1941. Heard it while I was trapped inside the USS Oklahoma as she capsized and went down. Heard it while men were screaming and pounding on the bulkheads and trying to claw their way out. 50 years later, I still hear it. Every time I turn on a faucet. Every time it rains. Every time I'm near water. That sound comes back, and I'm 20 years old again, trapped in the dark, drowning. My name is Robert Hayes. I'm 70 years old now, and I was a seaman first class aboard the USS Oklahoma when the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor. I'd been in the Navy for 2 years, thought I had it made. Cushy assignment in paradise, beautiful Hawaii, warm weather, no war. America wasn't at war with anybody in 1941. We had no idea what was coming. I grew up in Oklahoma, same as the ship's name, which made me proud when I got assigned to her. Small town outside Tulsa. Joined the Navy in 1939 when I was 18. Wanted to see the world, wanted adventure, wanted to get out of Oklahoma where nothing ever happened. The Navy sent me to Pearl Harbor in early 1940. I couldn't believe my luck. Hawaii was like a postcard. Palm trees, beaches, clear blue water. The Oklahoma was a good ship, old battleship, built back in 1916, but solid. Good crew, good officers. I was a gunner's mate, third class when I started. Made second class by 41. Worked on the 5-inch secondary battery. We'd drill constantly. Gunnery practice, damage control, abandoned ship procedures, all routine, all peacetime Navy stuff. Nobody thought we'd ever actually need it. My best friend was Charlie Martinez from Texas. We'd bunked together since boot camp, got assigned to the Oklahoma together, did everything together. He was like a brother. We'd go into Honolulu on Liberty, chase girls, drink beer, talk about what we'd do after the Navy. There was also Jimmy Sullivan from Boston, tough Irish kid who could drink anyone under the table. And Pete Anderson from Minnesota, quietest guy you'd ever meet, but the best poker player on the ship. And Rodriguez, don't remember his first name. Everyone just called him Rodriguez, from New Mexico. Always had a cigarette and a joke. Good men, good sailors. We were a crew, a family. Life on the Oklahoma was good. We'd have drills in the morning, maintenance in the afternoon, liberty in the evening if we weren't on duty. Weekends, if you weren't working, you could hit the beach, go swimming, explore the island. Pearl Harbor felt safe. We had the whole Pacific Fleet there, 8 battleships, dozens of other ships. We were the most powerful naval force in the world. Nobody would dare attack us. That's what we thought. The Japanese? We knew there was tension, knew relations were bad. But war seemed impossible. Japan was a small island nation. We were America. We had more ships, more planes, more everything. If it came to war, we'd crush them in a week. We were arrogant, stupid, blind. December 6th was a Saturday, beautiful day. Clear sky, warm sun, light breeze. Charlie and I had liberty. We went into Honolulu, had dinner, saw a movie, walked around Waikiki. Just a normal Saturday night in paradise. We got back to the ship around 2200 hours. Had to be back by midnight. We stood on the deck for a while, looking out at the harbor. The whole fleet was there. The battleships lined up along Battleship Row, the aircraft carriers. No, wait. The carriers were out on exercises. Just the battleships and cruisers and destroyers. This is the life, Charlie said. Beautiful night, no worries. Paradise in Hawaii. Yeah, I agreed. We really lucked out with this assignment. You think we'll ever see combat? Nah. By the time any war starts, we'll be civilians again. This is it for us. Easy duty till we rotate home. We had no idea. No idea that in less than 10 hours, everything would change. That the peace we knew was about to end. That most of the men on the Oklahoma wouldn't live to see another sunset. I went to my bunk that night around 10 p.m. The Oklahoma was moored next to the USS Maryland along Battleship Row. We were outboard, meaning we were between Maryland and the harbor entrance. Made it easier for us to get in and out for exercises. Also made us the first target. I fell asleep thinking about my next liberty. There was a girl I'd met in Honolulu, wanted to see her again. Charlie was ribbing me about her. Good-natured stuff. Everything was normal. Everything was fine. I woke up to the sound of explosions. December 7th, 1941. 07:55 hours. A Sunday morning that started with church bells and ended with over 1,000 men dying on my ship alone. The morning that changed everything. The first explosion woke me up. I thought it was thunder, or maybe one of our ships doing gunnery practice. I opened my eyes, confused. It was Sunday morning. We didn't do gunnery practice on Sunday mornings. Then I heard the second explosion, closer, louder. The whole ship shuddered. Charlie was already up, pulling on his pants. What the hell is that? I don't know. Accident, maybe? Then the general quarters alarm started blaring. That distinctive sound that meant battle stations. That meant this wasn't a drill. We scrambled, threw on our uniforms, grabbed our shoes, started running for our stations. The passageways were full of men doing the same thing, everyone confused, everyone asking the same questions. What's happening? Are we under attack? Who's attacking us? I made it topside just as the third explosion hit. This one was close, hit the Oklahoma somewhere forward. The deck jumped under my feet. I grabbed a railing to keep from falling. That's when I looked up and saw them. Planes, dozens of them, flying low over the harbor. I could see the red circle on their wings, the rising sun, Japanese planes. Holy shit, someone said. The Japs are attacking us. It didn't seem real. Couldn't be real. This was Pearl Harbor. This was American territory. This was supposed to be safe. But the planes kept coming, wave after wave, torpedo bombers coming in low over the water, dive bombers screaming down from above. The sound was incredible. Aircraft engines, bombs exploding, anti-aircraft guns starting to fire from ships around the harbor. I ran for my battle station, 5-inch gun mount on the starboard side. Charlie was right behind me. We were both running, and around us the world was exploding. The USS Arizona, moored ahead of us, took a bomb hit. I saw the explosion, saw the smoke and fire erupt from her deck. Another bomb hit her, then another. She was burning. Jesus Christ, Charlie said, Jesus Christ. We reached our gun mount. The rest of the crew was already there. Jimmy Sullivan was on the loading mechanism, Pete Anderson on the rangefinder, Rodriguez on the ammunition hoist. Load up, the gun captain shouted. We're going to shoot these bastards down. But before we could even get the gun ready, I felt it. Felt the ship lurch. A massive impact on the port side. The Oklahoma shuddered like she'd been hit by a giant hammer. Torpedo, someone screamed. Then another hit, and another, and another. 3, 4, 5 torpedoes slamming into the port side in quick succession. The ship was shaking apart. The deck was tilting. She's listing, the gun captain yelled. She's going over. He was right. The Oklahoma was listing to port. Listing bad. 10 degrees. 15. 20. The deck was no longer level. We were sliding, grabbing onto anything we could to keep from falling. More torpedoes hit. I lost count. 5, 6, 7. Each one shook the ship. Each one made the list worse. 30 degrees now. 35. Abandon ship, I heard someone shout, "All hands abandon ship!" But we couldn't. We were on the starboard side, and the ship was listing to port. Listing so far that the port side was under water now. The ship was rolling over, capsizing. Men were jumping off the deck into the harbor, sliding down the hull as it tilted. The Oklahoma was turning turtle, rolling completely over like a dying whale. I was still at my gun mount, holding onto a railing, watching the water get closer as the ship capsized. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be happening. Ships didn't just roll over, not battleships, not American battleships. But the Oklahoma was going over, 40 degrees, 50, 60. "Jump!" Charlie screamed. "We have to jump." I looked at the water. It was full of oil from damaged ships, full of debris, full of men swimming, trying to get away from the sinking ship. The deck was nearly vertical now. I couldn't hold on anymore. Started sliding down toward the water. Charlie was sliding too. Jimmy, Pete, Rodriguez, all of us sliding down the hull as the Oklahoma capsized. I hit the water, went under. The oil was thick, coating everything. I couldn't see, couldn't breathe. Surfaced, gasping, choking on oil. The water was warm, hot even. Burning oil floating on the surface. I looked up. The Oklahoma was on her side now, completely capsized, her bottom facing the sky. Men were still on the hull, trying to stand on the slippery surface. Others were in the water with me. Then I heard it. The sound I'll never forget. The sound that still haunts me 50 years later. Pounding. From inside the ship. Men trapped inside, pounding on the hull. Pounding to get out, screaming. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds. Trapped in the capsized ship as it settled into the harbor bottom. I was in the water, covered in oil, watching my ship die, listening to my shipmates pound and scream from inside their steel tomb. Charlie surfaced next to me. "We have to get away from the ship. If she goes down, she'll pull us under." But the Oklahoma wasn't going down, not completely. She was capsized, lying on her side in the shallow harbor water, her bottom above the surface. And inside, men were dying. We swam away from the Oklahoma through the oil and debris and bodies. The Japanese planes were still overhead, still bombing, still strafing, bullets hitting the water around us. Men next to me getting hit, crying out, going under. We made it to Ford Island, crawled out of the water onto the shore, collapsed on the ground, gasping, choking, covered in oil. I looked back at the harbor. The Oklahoma was on her side, smoke rising from her hull. The Arizona was burning, completely engulfed in flames. The West Virginia was sinking. The California was sinking. The Utah was capsized. The harbor was full of burning ships and oil fires and wreckage. And over it all, I could still hear them. The men trapped in the Oklahoma, pounding, screaming, trying to get out. Charlie was next to me, covered in oil, shaking. This can't be real. This can't be happening. But it was real. It was happening. Pearl Harbor was burning, and we were at war. The attack lasted less than 2 hours. But those 2 hours destroyed the Pacific Fleet, destroyed my ship, killed over 1,000 of my shipmates. 2 hours that changed the world. And I was just getting started learning what that meant. The Japanese planes finally left around 1000 hours. 2 hours of hell, then silence. Not real silence. The harbor was full of sounds, ships burning, men screaming, ammunition cooking off. But the aircraft engines were gone. The bombs had stopped falling. I sat on Ford Island, covered in oil, shaking, trying to understand what had just happened. Charlie was next to me. We were both alive. That was something. But we didn't feel lucky, because we could still hear them. The men trapped in the Oklahoma, pounding on the hull, screaming for help. Hundreds of men trapped in the capsized ship, in the darkness, in spaces that were filling with water. "We have to help them," Charlie said. We have to get them out. We tried. God, we tried. Went back to the Oklahoma with cutting torches and sledgehammers, but where do you cut? The ship was upside down. Everything was reversed. What had been the bottom was now on top. What had been on top was underwater. The men inside were pounding. We could hear them clearly now. Could hear them screaming, "Help us! Get us out! Please!" We'd pound back. "We're trying! We're coming! Hold on!" But we didn't know where to cut. Didn't know where they were. The Oklahoma was huge. 583 feet long, massive steel hull. We could hear them pounding, but we couldn't pinpoint exactly where they were. We started cutting anyway, using torches to burn through the hull. It was slow, so slow. The steel was thick, and we had to be careful. Cut in the wrong place, and we might flood a compartment that was still dry, kill the men we were trying to save. The oil in the water caught fire. The whole harbor was burning. We were trying to cut through steel while standing in water, while fires burned all around us, while men screamed from inside the ship. We got the first men out around noon, cut through into a compartment that had air. 4 men crawled out through the hole we'd made. They were covered in oil, bruised, terrified, but alive. "There's more," one of them shouted. "There's dozens more in the next compartment. You have to get them out." We kept cutting, but night was coming. We had to stop when it got dark. Couldn't see, couldn't work safely. We'd cut for 12 hours, gotten maybe 30 men out. Hundreds more were still trapped inside. All night, we could hear them, pounding, screaming. Weaker now, some of them running out of air, some of them in compartments that were flooding. I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. Just sat on Ford Island listening to them die, listening to the pounding get slower, listening to the screams get quieter. The next morning, December 8th, we started again. More cutting, more desperate rescue attempts. We got another dozen men out, then another group, then another. But with each group we rescued, they told us about the men we couldn't reach. Men trapped in sealed compartments, men drowning as water slowly filled their spaces, men dying in the dark while we worked above them. Some of the trapped men had been in the engine rooms when the ship capsized. 3 decks down, in the bowels of the ship. When the Oklahoma rolled over, they were trapped instantly. No way out. Just darkness and rising water. I talked to one man we pulled out on the second day. His name was Williams. He'd been in a compartment with 12 other men. They'd survived the initial capsizing, had air, but the compartment was slowly flooding, water coming in through seams in the hull. "We could hear you cutting," he said. "Hear you trying to get to us. But you were so far away. The water kept rising. We climbed higher, trying to stay above it, but there was nowhere to go." "How'd you get out?" I asked. "The water got high enough that we could reach a hatch on what used to be the floor. Forced it open, swam through, left 3 guys behind. They couldn't swim, couldn't hold their breath long enough." He started crying. "I left them. I left them there to drown." "You did what you had to do," I said. But the words felt hollow. By December 10th, we'd stopped hearing pounding from inside the ship. The men who were going to get out had gotten out. The rest were dead, drowned or suffocated or crushed in the capsizing. Over 400 men died on the Oklahoma, 415 to be exact, trapped inside when she rolled over. I knew most of them, had served with them, eaten with them, lived with them. Rodriguez was still inside. We never got him out. Pete Anderson, too. Jimmy Sullivan made it out. I found him on Ford Island on the 8th. But he wasn't the same. None of us were. The Arizona had it worse. She'd taken a bomb in her forward magazine. The explosion killed over 1,000 men instantly. The ship sank in 9 minutes. Most of the crew never had a chance. I watched her burn for 2 days, watched the smoke pour from her wreck, watched the oil leak Pearl Harbor survivor recalls the morning of December 7th, 1941, recorded in 1991. They gave us 2 weeks. 2 weeks to bury the dead, salvage what we could, and reorganize. Then they assigned us to new ships. The Navy needed every man. The Pacific Fleet was crippled, and we were at war. I got assigned to the USS Enterprise, one of the carriers that had been out on exercises during the attack. She'd missed Pearl Harbor by hours. Came back to find the harbor burning and the fleet destroyed. I should have been grateful. Should have been glad to be on a ship that was intact, that could fight. But I felt nothing, just numb, empty, like everything that made me human had drowned with the Oklahoma. We sailed out in January 1942, hunting for the Japanese fleet, looking for revenge. The whole crew was angry, eager to strike back, but I couldn't feel it, couldn't feel the anger or the eagerness. Could only feel the water, the sound of men pounding on steel. I did my job, worked my gun station, followed orders, but I was going through the motions, like I was watching myself from outside my body. The nightmares started about a month after Pearl Harbor. Every night I'd dream about the Oklahoma, about the ship rolling over, about being trapped inside as water filled the compartment, about pounding on the hull while nobody came, about drowning in the dark. I'd wake up gasping, thrashing, thinking I was underwater. My shipmates learned to stay away from my bunk when I was sleeping, learned I'd swing at anything that moved when I woke up like that. I started avoiding water when I wasn't on duty. Wouldn't shower unless I had to. Wouldn't go near the edge of the ship. The ocean terrified me now. The thing I'd loved about the Navy, being at sea, now filled me with dread. What if the ship sank? What if I ended up trapped like the men on the Oklahoma? What if I had to listen to water rushing in while I drowned? We fought at Midway in June 1942. Big battle, decisive victory. We sank 4 Japanese carriers. The battle that turned the tide of the war in the Pacific, they said. I barely remember it. Just fragments. The sound of aircraft launching. The vibration of the ship. The hours of waiting. Then the planes coming back, some shot up, some not returning at all. Men died at Midway. Pilots who didn't make it back. Sailors on the Japanese carriers. But it was distant, abstract. Not like Pearl Harbor. Not like watching your ship capsize and hearing men scream from inside. Jimmy Sullivan's parents wrote to me. They'd gotten my name from someone, wanted to know what happened to their son. Wanted to know if he'd suffered, if he'd died quickly. I didn't know what to tell them. I'd found him alive on December 8th. But the casualty list said missing. The burned body with the Boston ring might have been him, or it might not have been. I had no idea what happened. I wrote back, said I'd seen him after the attack, said he'd seemed okay, said I didn't know what happened after that. All lies. Kind lies, maybe, but lies nonetheless. The truth that their son might have drowned, trapped in a capsized ship, or might have burned beyond recognition, or might have died in any number of horrible ways, that truth wouldn't help them. So I lied. I wrote to Charlie, too. Sent letters to the address I had for him in Texas. They all came back undeliverable. His family had moved, or he'd moved, or something. I never found him. Years later, I learned he'd died in 1945. Suicide. Put a gun in his mouth and pulled the trigger. The war had been over for 3 months. He'd survived Pearl Harbor. Survived the Oklahoma capsizing. Got out alive. But he couldn't survive the memories. I understood. There were days I thought about doing the same thing. Days when the nightmares were too much, when the sound of water made me panic, when I couldn't stand being in my own head anymore. The only thing that stopped me was anger. The same anger that had kept me alive those first few months. Anger at the Japanese for attacking us. Anger at our commanders for being unprepared. Anger at myself for surviving when better men died. That anger kept me going, kept me doing my job, kept me fighting. I stayed on the Enterprise through the war. Guadalcanal, Tarawa, the Philippines, Iwo Jima, Okinawa, 4 years of island hopping across the Pacific, 4 years of combat. But none of it was as bad as Pearl Harbor. None of it compared to those first 3 days. The attack, the rescue attempts, the bodies, the pounding that stopped. We won the war in August 1945. Japan surrendered. The whole crew celebrated. Victory in the Pacific. We'd beaten them. 4 years of fighting and we'd won. I felt nothing. No joy, no relief, just emptiness. The war was over, but Pearl Harbor wasn't over. Not for me. It would never be over. They sent me home in October 1945. Honorable discharge. I'd served for 6 years, done my duty, fought the good fight. I was a veteran, a hero, they said. I didn't feel like a hero. I felt like a survivor, and survivors carry guilt. I went back to Oklahoma, tried to pick up my life, tried to forget, but you can't forget. You can't unhear the sounds, can't unsee the images, can't unfeel the helplessness. I got a job at a factory, manual labor, mindless work. It was better than thinking, better than remembering, but the nightmares never stopped. Every night, the Oklahoma. Every night, drowning. Every night, pounding on steel while nobody came. I started drinking. Not much at first. Just enough to help me sleep. But enough became more. More became too much. By 1947, I was drinking every day. By 1948, I'd lost my job. I was 27 years old and falling apart. That's when I met Sarah. She was a nurse at the VA hospital where I'd gone for help. She'd seen a lot of veterans like me. Men who'd survived the war but couldn't survive the peace. She didn't judge, didn't try to fix me, just listened. That was new. Nobody had listened before. They'd told me to get over it, told me to move on, told me the war was over. But Sarah listened, and somehow that helped. We got married in 1949. She knew what she was getting into, knew about the nightmares, knew about the drinking, knew about Pearl Harbor. She married me anyway. I didn't deserve her, still don't, but she saved my life. She helped me stop drinking, helped me find work, helped me learn to live with the nightmares instead of running from them. She couldn't make them stop. Nothing could do that. But she taught me how to survive them. We had a good life. Not perfect. The ghosts were always there. But good enough. I never talked about Pearl Harbor. Not to her. Not to anyone. What was there to say? How do you explain watching your ship die? Watching your friends die? Listening to men drown while you stood helpless? You don't. You just carry it. Alone. In silence. For 46 years, I carried it alone. December 7th was always the worst day of the year. Every year, without fail. I'd wake up that morning and the memories would be right there. Closer than usual, more vivid. I'd smell the oil, hear the pounding, feel the water. Sarah learned to give me space on December 7th. Learned I'd be quiet, distant, unreachable. She'd make sure I wasn't alone, but she wouldn't push me to talk. Just let me survive the day. Most years, I could manage it. Could get through December 7th without falling apart completely. But some years were harder than others. 1966 was bad. 25 years since Pearl Harbor. The newspapers did big anniversary stories. Pictures of the Arizona Memorial. Interviews with survivors, lists of the dead. I couldn't avoid it. It was everywhere. Radio, TV, newspapers, everyone wanting to remember, everyone talking about the date that would live in infamy. But they didn't remember. Not really. They remembered the attack, the surprise, the declaration of war. They remembered it as the beginning of our victory. They didn't remember the pounding, the screaming, the men drowning in the dark. They didn't remember what it sounded like, what it smelled like, what it felt like to fail to save your friends. I started drinking again that December. First time in almost 20 years. Just couldn't handle it. Couldn't handle the memories combined with everyone talking about it like it was history, like it was something distant and meaningful instead of personal and raw. Sarah found me in the garage with a bottle of whiskey and a rope. I'd tied the rope to the rafters, was standing on a chair looking at it, trying to decide. 25 years since Pearl Harbor, and I still couldn't escape it. Still heard them pounding, still felt the guilt, still wondered why I'd survived when better men died. Sarah didn't say anything, just walked over, took the bottle from my hand, untied the rope. Then she sat down on the garage floor and started crying. Not for herself, for me, for what Pearl Harbor had done to me, for the 25 years I'd been carrying it. I sat down next to her, put my arm around her. We sat there for an hour, maybe more, not talking, just sitting. "You need to talk about it," she finally said. "You need to tell someone. It's killing you." "I can't. Nobody understands." "Find someone who does. Other survivors, other veterans, someone." She was right. I knew she was right. But I'd spent 25 years not talking about it. Didn't know how to start. 1976 was worse. 35 years since Pearl Harbor. I was 55 years old, and I still couldn't sleep through the night without nightmares. Still couldn't hear rushing water without panicking. Still carried the guilt every single day. The VA had started offering group therapy for veterans. PTSD, they were calling it now. Post-traumatic stress disorder. They said it was common. Said a lot of veterans had it. Said treatment could help. I went to one session, sat in a circle with other veterans. Most of them were Vietnam vets, young guys, 30s and 40s, talking about their war, their trauma, their nightmares. I listened. Didn't say anything. Just listened. At the end, the counselor asked if anyone else wanted to share. Everyone looked at me, the old guy in the corner who hadn't said a word. I tried. Tried to talk about Pearl Harbor. Opened my mouth and nothing came out. Just sat there with my mouth open, unable to speak. The memories were too big, too heavy, too raw, even after 35 years. I left halfway through. Couldn't do it. Couldn't sit there and try to explain the unexplainable. But something had shifted. Something about being in that room with other men who understood trauma, who carried their own ghosts, made me realize I wasn't alone, wasn't the only one who couldn't escape their war. I started going to Pearl Harbor survivor reunions. The USS Oklahoma Survivors Association held them every few years. Men who'd been on the ship when she capsized. Men who'd lived through it. The first one I went to was in 1980, 39 years after the attack. There were maybe 50 of us left, out of over 1,400 men who'd been aboard the Oklahoma. 50 survivors at a reunion. We didn't talk much about the attack at first. Talked about our lives, our families, what we'd been doing for the past 40 years, safe topics. But eventually, late at night, after a few drinks, someone would start, would mention the capsizing, the water, the pounding, and then we'd all talk, all share, all finally admit what we'd been carrying all these years. "I still hear them," one man said. "Every night, the pounding, the screaming." "Me too," another said. "Me too," I said. It was the first time I'd admitted it out loud. The first time I'd told anyone except Sarah. And everyone in that room nodded. They all heard it too. All carried the same ghosts, the same guilt, the same nightmares. For the first time in 39 years, I didn't feel alone with it. We talked until dawn. About the men who didn't make it. About Rodriguez and Pete Anderson and all the others. About the rescue attempts. About pulling bodies from the water. About the guilt of surviving. One man, his name was Thompson, had been trapped inside for 30 hours before they cut him out. 30 hours in the dark, in a compartment that was slowly flooding, listening to men around him drown. I thought I was going to die, he said. Thought that was it. And part of me wanted it to be over. But then I heard you guys cutting, heard the torches, knew you were trying to get to us. He looked at me. You were there. You were one of the ones cutting. Yeah, I said. We tried. We tried so hard. You saved my life, he said. You and the others. You saved a lot of lives. But I couldn't accept that. Couldn't feel good about the 30 or 40 we'd saved when 400 had died. 400 men I couldn't reach, couldn't save, could only listen to as they died. I'm sorry, I said. I'm sorry we weren't faster. Sorry we couldn't get everyone. You did what you could, Thompson said. That's all anyone can do. But it didn't feel like enough. Never felt like enough. The reunions helped, though. Helped to talk to men who understood, who carried the same burden, who heard the same sounds in their sleep. We kept having them every few years. Each time there were fewer of us. Age and time taking their toll. By 1985, there were maybe 30 of us left. By 1990, maybe 20. The 50th anniversary was coming up, December 7th, 1991. 50 years since Pearl Harbor. The newspapers were already planning coverage. The government was planning ceremonies. Everyone wanted to commemorate the day, and I realized I'm 70 years old. I've carried this for 50 years, half a century of nightmares and guilt and ghosts. How much longer could I carry it? Sarah had been diagnosed with cancer in 1990. It was advanced, terminal. The doctors gave her maybe a year. She was the only thing keeping me together, the only reason I'd survived this long. And she was dying. I sat with her in the hospital one night. She was weak, struggling, but she looked at me and said, "Promise me something." "Anything," I said. "Promise me you'll finally tell your story, all of it, before the 50th anniversary. Promise me you'll stop carrying it alone." "Sarah." "Promise me. I won't rest if I think you're going to suffer in silence for however many years you have left." I promised, because I couldn't refuse her anything. She died in March 1991, 9 months before the 50th anniversary, and I kept my promise. That's why I'm here now talking to you, recording this. Because I promised Sarah I'd tell the story. I'd stop carrying it alone. 50 years is long enough to carry anything. 50 years of nightmares. 50 years of guilt. 50 years of hearing men pound on steel while I stood helpless. Maybe telling it won't help. Maybe the ghosts won't leave. Maybe I'll carry Pearl Harbor until the day I die. But I promised Sarah, and I keep my promises to her. Even now, even after she's gone. I'm 70 years old now. 50 years since Pearl Harbor. Half a century, an entire lifetime. I've outlived most of the men I served with. Outlived Charlie Martinez by 46 years. Outlived Rodriguez and Pete Anderson by 50. Outlived Sarah by 8 months. Sometimes I wonder why. Why did I survive when they didn't? What made me special? What made me deserve to live when better men died? I don't have an answer. Never did. After 50 years of asking that question, I still don't have an answer. The nightmares never stopped. 50 years, and I still dream about the Oklahoma at least twice a week. Still wake up gasping, thinking I'm underwater. Still hear the pounding, still smell the oil. Sarah used to hold me when I woke up from the nightmares. Would tell me I was safe, that I was home, that the war was over. It helped. Not much, but some. Now she's gone, and the nightmares are worse. No one to tell me it's okay. No one to hold me while the fear passes. Just me and the ghosts. I can't be near water anymore. Not really. I live in Oklahoma now, about as far from the ocean as you can get in America. No accident. Can't handle being near the sea. Can't handle the sound of waves. Reminds me too much of that morning. I tried to go to the beach once. Sarah wanted to take a vacation in 1975. Said we should go to California, see the Pacific. I agreed because I'd have done anything for her. We got to the beach. I stepped out of the car, heard the waves, and had a panic attack right there in the parking lot. Fell to my knees, couldn't breathe, thought I was dying. Sarah drove us back to the hotel. We never went to the beach, never tried again. She never asked, and I never offered. The 50th anniversary is in 3 months, December 7th, 1991. There's going to be a big ceremony at Pearl Harbor. They're inviting all the survivors. They want us there, want us to be part of the commemoration. I'm not going. Can't go. Can't go back to that place. Can't stand where the Oklahoma capsized. Can't look at the water where 400 men died while I listened. Some of the other survivors are going. The ones who've made peace with it somehow. The ones who can stand at the memorial and remember without falling apart. I'm not one of them. I'll never be one of them. Pearl Harbor took something from me that I never got back. Took my youth, my innocence, my peace of mind. Took the ability to hear water without panic. Took the ability to sleep without nightmares. Took any sense that the world was safe or predictable or fair. It took my friends, Rodriguez, Pete Anderson, the 400 others who died on the Oklahoma, the 1,000 on the Arizona, the 2,400 total who died that morning. And it took something else, something harder to name. It took my belief that there was meaning to things, that death served a purpose, that sacrifice meant something. I used to think the men who died at Pearl Harbor died for something, died to wake America up, died to bring us into the war, died so we could defeat fascism and save the world. But I don't believe that anymore. They didn't die for a purpose. They died because they were in the wrong place at the wrong time. They died trapped and terrified and alone. Their deaths didn't mean anything, didn't accomplish anything. They were just dead. And I survived. Not because I was braver or smarter or better. I survived because the torpedo that hit my section of the ship didn't penetrate far enough to kill me. Because I was topside instead of below decks. Because of random chance and dumb luck. That's what 50 years has taught me. There's no meaning to it, no purpose, no divine plan. Just chaos and chance and young men dying for no reason at all. People don't want to hear that. They want Pearl Harbor to mean something, want it to be a noble sacrifice, want it to be the day America woke up and became great. But all I see is chaos. All I hear is pounding on steel. All I remember is helplessness. The younger generations don't understand. They learn about Pearl Harbor in history class. They see it as the beginning of World War II, the event that brought America into the fight. They see it as important, historical, meaningful. They don't see the men drowning in capsized ships, don't hear the screaming, don't smell the burning oil and flesh, don't understand what it's like to spend 50 years carrying that inside you. I tried to tell my nephew once. He was in high school studying World War II. Asked me about Pearl Harbor. Asked what it was like to be there. I tried to tell him, tried to explain the terror and the chaos and the death, tried to make him understand. He just looked at me confused. But you guys won the war, right? So it worked out okay in the end? I didn't know what to say to that. How do you explain that winning the war doesn't bring back the dead? Doesn't stop the nightmares? Doesn't make the memories go away? You can't. They don't understand. They can't understand unless they've lived it. There are fewer of us every year. Fewer Pearl Harbor survivors. Fewer men who remember what it was really like. Soon we'll all be gone, and Pearl Harbor will just be history. Just dates and facts and numbers in a textbook. 2,403 dead, 1,178 wounded, 8 battleships damaged or destroyed. The USS Arizona still leaking oil after 50 years, still entombing over 900 men. Numbers, statistics, history. But I remember them as men. Remember Rodriguez's laugh. Remember Pete Anderson's quiet smile. Remember the 400 I couldn't save. Remember their screaming. Remember their pounding. I'll remember until the day I die. And when I die, probably soon, my heart's not what it used to be. Maybe I'll finally join them. Finally stop hearing the pounding. Finally find peace. Or maybe not. Maybe I'll be a ghost, too, walking the decks of the Oklahoma forever, listening to men die while I stand helpless. Either way, Pearl Harbor will be with me until the end. It's been with me for 50 years. It'll be with me for whatever time I have left. Sarah used to say I should forgive myself, that I did everything I could, that the men who died don't blame me. But I can't forgive myself, can't accept that I did enough, can't stop hearing them pound and scream and die while I stood helpless with a cutting torch that was too slow and a ship that was too big and time that ran out too fast. 415 men died on the Oklahoma. I knew most of them, served with them, called them friends, and I couldn't save them. That's what I carry. That's what 50 years has been. That's what Pearl Harbor means to me. Not a date, not a battle, not a turning point in history, just failure, just helplessness, just the sound of men dying while I couldn't help them. People ask me sometimes. They ask what I want people to know about Pearl Harbor, what I want the younger generations to remember. I want them to know it wasn't glorious, wasn't heroic, wasn't a noble sacrifice. It was chaos. It was terror. It was young men dying in horrible ways while their friends watched helplessly. It was ships sinking and men drowning and oil burning on water. It was 3 days of pulling bodies and listening to men scream from inside steel tombs. It was hell, and some of us never left. I'm still there. 50 years later, I'm still standing on Ford Island on December 7th, 1941, listening to the Oklahoma die, listening to my friends die, listening to that sound, that rushing, gurgling, hungry sound of water flooding into a capsized ship. I'll be there until I die. And maybe after. The 50th anniversary ceremony will have speeches. They'll talk about courage and sacrifice and the day that will live in infamy. They'll honor the dead. They'll thank the survivors. But they won't mention the sound, the pounding on steel, the screaming from inside the ships, the helplessness of standing outside with cutting torches that were too slow. They won't mention the nightmares that never stop. The panic attacks that last 50 years, the guilt that never fades, the ghosts that never leave. They won't mention that survival isn't victory, that coming home doesn't mean you're okay, that some wounds never heal no matter how much time passes. They won't mention any of that because it doesn't fit the narrative, doesn't fit the story America wants to tell about Pearl Harbor. But it's the truth. It's my truth. It's what 50 years has taught me. Pearl Harbor didn't make me a hero. It made me a survivor. And survivors carry ghosts. I'm 70 years old. I've carried Pearl Harbor for 50 years. Carried the memories. Carried the guilt. Carried the sound of men dying while I couldn't save them. I'll carry it for however many years I have left. And when I die, when they finally put me in the ground in Oklahoma, far from the ocean, I hope I'll finally stop hearing the pounding. I hope I'll finally find peace. But I doubt it. Some sounds never stop. Some ghosts never leave. And Pearl Harbor will be with me forever.